Sit back, relax. Try to maintain your composure. You are about to become connected.
Good afternoon and good evening to everybody. This is the Connect podcast, episode number 33, which apparently is a special number for
Very special
my
number.
colleague Shaun here.
It's a very special number. It's my favourite, one of my favourite numbers. 33 and 3 really.
3.
And then
All
3
things
double.
3.
333 is probably the best as you can get in any sort of number.
3 threes.
3 threes at once.
Yeah.
It's pretty.
What about
pretty,
33 threes or like 333 threes?
Possibly 333 might definitely be something worth looking at, but it's very rare that number comes up.
333?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a prime number.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think what's the devil's number is 666.
Yeah.
So 333 is.
So you're halfway there.
No, I think it's like...
What? The
I
mix
don't
of
really
good
know.
and evil.
It's only really me saying, that.
It's all hearsay.
Yeah, it's not only really me saying that it's significant in some way, but it means something to me and that's all that really matters.
Good for
Doesn't
you,
it?
Shaun. Anyway, so today we haven't done a podcast again for a while.
We haven't been doing many lately and we apologise for all you listeners out there.
We don't care about the world anymore. We've kind of just decided that
Quite the opposite. We care too much about the world and that's why it's hard for us to talk about
It's
it.
draining.
It's draining.
Giving a fuck.
Yeah, no, but there's only so many podcasts we do by ourselves, don't mind doing them once every 10
The ones
days
we
or
had,
something.
the ones we did
That's all
before
we do.
Shane, we were doing them all by ourselves.
Yeah, I know, and that's fine, but
Yeah.
you don't want to do, when we were doing 2 a week and that sort of thing, we were interviewing people regularly,
Yeah.
one maybe one with us and one with
We
them.
need to
And
start doing more
there's
of that.
only so much you can,
Well, next week-
speak shit into a microphone by yourself.
Well, the purpose of this podcast was actually to get other people to come and share their specific unique knowledge.
Yeah.
So we kind of deviated from that, given that we just
Well, yeah,
rant
but-
ourselves.
I think where we're at is we're just focusing our attention on the Facebook page.
I'm focusing my attention on Molly's face.
Yeah, and this cat.
So cute.
Yeah, no, focusing our attention on the Facebook page, we're actually starting to create our own memes down that, and it all takes time, and it's so hard to try and get. Now we're really getting close, interesting friends to talk on podcasts, and people that give us inspiration. So it's really hard to work 5 days a week, work your 40, 50 hours a week, and then try and organise people to interview, and then try and organise the Facebook page and post every hour.
The Facebook page takes a lot of time, but I also think that the main problem that's occurred is we have trouble, you and I, Shaun, getting appointment times for people. So I probably have enough time in my week to organise appointments with interesting people to talk to, but it's just so fucking hard to organise a time that suits everybody because you and I have such different schedules.
We do have different
that's
schedules. But also, we had one organised tonight, but she had to make it next week. But originally, this one was last week.
Yeah, exactly.
And now it's turned to this week, and then we're like, well, we can't go another 2 weeks without a podcast.
And that was what we originally remember. We decided that that was going to happen all the time. That's why we used to organise 3 in a week, knowing that some would cancel. But anyway, next week we have a really exciting one. Anyway, we've got a guy who channels a spirit.
Oh, really? Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
we do.
and so that's going to be so interesting. I actually remember when, we'll probably talk about it obviously next week, but when I went out for dinner with these people, because I had a Skype a Skype meeting with them where he channeled and spoke to me. So I spoke to the higher being through Skype, and whatever that means. And then when I went out for dinner with them a few weeks later, because they're actually friends with my dad, so we went out for dinner, and I just absolutely blasted them with questions about the nature of reality and what do they believe in this and how do they think it all works in terms of the physics of everything, and explain to me what you think, given the fact that you channel, what does that mean for you when you think about life after death and and how does all that sort of stuff. And so so that's why I reckon it'd be fun to interview them, because they have got to have some pretty damn solid theories about stuff like that if they're channeling.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you can't be privy to that world and not have come to some conclusions about the meaning of life.
Definitely not. No. You can't be liaising with the spirit world who are all passed on humans and not come to some sort of conclusion about who we are, where we're going, and where we've come from. So,
or at least some, conclusions about how psychic phenomena works and, dimensions
that's
and all
fucking,
that stuff.
That's like funny. I was just putting myself in the position of like a modern day, like, mainstream scientist, and that's all just crazy crap talk you're just talking about there. But it's like the reality of a lot of people, whether you're a part of a religion or whether you're part of whatever. That's a reality of the majority of the world's day-to-day life. They believe in that sort of shit, but the people who we take advice off most of the time, they don't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they're on a completely other wavelength. That's why it's hard for me. I fucking have utmost faith in science, and it'll get us to where we need to be and all the rest of it. But when you get into some philosophical conversations and to some sort of deeper meaning sort of discussions, it's hard for me to go any further than what my brain allows me to with scientists, because they miss out on a major part of reality, and that reality is that we're not just sacks of meat walking around fucking going to our jobs and coming home. We're told that's all we are.
Science hasn't yet officially recognised, I don't think, that consciousness is something that that may exist apart from the brain signals. So I know Molly is wrapped up in a blanket on Shaun's lap, and it's the cutest thing ever.
Yeah. Anyway, talking about some serious shit.
Yeah, so anyway, so there are lots of things that science misses, and I think I wouldn't say that I believe in anything. My brain is a constant work in progress, and I'm just trying to listen to all the amount of information I get and come up with the best theory that I think fits everything, given what I know and what I've experienced. So I've heard a lot of stories, and I love hearing about spiritual experiences. I absolutely love it. I love, Shaun's had a lot of stuff that's happened to him, which I've been right next to him by his side with, and I love seeing that. But at the end of the day, it didn't happen to me, and so nothing's ever set in stone for my sort of ways of looking at things. But I also recognise that science is still just a language and a belief system. Science is just a language, a way of humans to look at their environment, interact with it, and make use of their environment by being able to describe and explain things that are happening. So, science is useful to us because we've developed it because we've seen the use in being able to explain things in an objective way, which actually applies to everywhere you are, any time. All cultures can understand it. It's objective, completely objective to every single human being, which is why it's such a useful language. But it's still just a language and a way of describing, and it's limited by words. It's limited by the concepts that we've so far been able to figure out.
That's right.
It's completely human manufactured and has no actual inherent truth.
It's limited to the... okay, honey. It's limited
Molly
to
wants to get out of her little sack.
It's limited
she
to
looks so cute. She's getting out. Come on.
It's limited to the mistakes that we've made previously, to the mistakes that scientists want to admit to. Also, it's limited to the human ego as well.
Oh, definitely.
Is that, science on a theoretical level says that it is 100% utterly willing to be able to be wrong. But unfortunately, the human ego doesn't work like that. So we've got this massive problem, especially when you throw profit into the mix. As soon as profit comes into the mix, and as soon as gaining money is essential in the scientific field, then being wrong in science is not a luxury that a lot of people can afford. So, I mean, sure, you put your scientific method to work, you do everything you need to do. There's so many examples of that. So for interest's sake, the data we have with fluoride, actually, it may not be the best for you, and it could possibly, in countries that don't fluoridate their water to countries that do fluoridate the water, the evidence is in the past 100 years or however documented history that dental caries have been at the same rate of decline in both different situations.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Like that is actually the facts of the matter in European cities.
Say that again. So the Western world rate of cavities were actually declining, even in the countries that weren't fluoridated water.
That's correct. Yeah. So in Eastern European countries and European countries, a lot of Europe, actually 80-90% of Europe don't fluoridate their water, and the dental caries, which have apparently plagued the whole world for so long, have been at the same rate of decline, and that's because we have more education when it comes to and the topical use of fluoride. And it doesn't matter if you're ingesting fluoride or not.
Yeah.
So I mean that's a scientific.
Yeah. So it's not science itself and the method of science, the scientific method that is flawed in what you're saying. It's the it's the use of it by humans, which is vulnerable to our sinister motives and our ego and our profit incentives and all that sort of thing, where we end up misusing science and not actually being true to what it's made for. So it's not actually, science that's...
I mean, you could say that about any, major institution in society. So, such as religion, such as politics, such as the economic system. All these systems have been put in place... And all these systems have been put in place to really benefit mankind as a whole, or even benefit parts of mankind. And they've all done that to a certain degree, and they all still do that to a certain degree.
What? Like religion?
Well, religion, benefits. It used to benefit people back in the day. They were wondering, why there were all these, destructions, man-made destructions, and that. Well, God did it. God did this stuff.
That's exactly the same as what I meant before. So, it's just a way. The religion was created as a way of explaining the environment they lived in, so that they could make the environment work for them by understanding it. So, when you understand it, for example, a religion that believes that it rains because the god has done something, whatever. So then, in that case, I understand my environment. Wow, that means that I'm going to try and do a rain dance and pray to the god so it rains. Yeah. So it's a way of benefiting from understanding your environment. But the problem with religion is that it only applies and only valid for the culture in which it was created. So it's not objective, and it's limited to that particular environment, that culture in that spot. And so that's why there's so many clashes around the world with all these different religions that have come up, because they're all little ways of explaining things that just don't fit together. But science is universal and objective, and that's why it's been so powerful, but it is still just a religion.
It's similar, when we do talk about that, back in the day you had a religious high priestess or something, or a hierarchy of religion, pope or someone that, if the human race or if, societies needed some sort of conclusion to their problems or needed to know why something was happening, the priest came out in his robes and he said, this is why it's happening, because God is angry at you, or because you need to sacrifice more of this or that. Yeah. And so now we've got, have you ever watched some sort of dental commercial lately? You've got a guy in a white robe telling you if you don't use this, then you're not going to have the best teeth and all the rest of it. And it might be right, but it's still some guy in a white robe, in a white overcoat, telling you what. And then you get and so now we've got a situation. But now, what we're going to speak about on this podcast is that this is sort of the same sort of thing. But what is happening now? At least the priests back in the day, they could influence maybe wars or that sort of thing, they don't believe in our religion, so go and attack them or this and that, which happened quite a lot. But, now we've got a situation where scientists and the people who have this knowledge and this power are actually able to reconfigure systems of nature, because we've got the technology to be able to do that. So, for interest's sake, with weather modification, geoengineering, essentially with weather modification. Now, this seems to be, the more that I read into it, and it just keeps coming up. It's not going away. No, it's not going away anywhere. If this is, you could basically class this to conspiracies to end all conspiracies.
The mother of all conspiracies.
If you listen to anyone that sort of, any climate scientist or anything, as long as you're listening to the ones that aren't getting paid off, then they're saying that climate change, global warming, whatever the fuck you want to call it, is the biggest problem facing the human race ever, and ever will be. So if we don't either leave the fossil fuels in the ground, or if we don't do something radically to change the way that our economy is structured so that we don't need infinite growth to class ourselves as successful, so we don't have to keep pulling resources out of the ground, keep burning all these emissions to be able to get to work and so on and so forth. If we don't do something to change the way that our society is structured, then civilization will end as we know it, full stop, and it will happen probably in the next 30 to 40 years. And that's through rising sea levels, lack of biodiversity, bees dying, no more harvesting.
Resource wars. That'll be the main thing.
Once again, you have Vladimir Putin, that's such a good name, good on him. Vladimir Putin going on the record saying on mainstream media that the closest way that we're going to get to a third world war is if Obama does not stop Monsanto from killing all the bees. He goes that Albert Einstein quoted, mankind will have years left to live if native bees of any particular area, I don't know, I'm paraphrasing the quote, if native bees die out.
Yeah.
Which is what we're seeing right now all around the world, and it's from the change in global temperatures. When our food isn't getting pollinated, we don't eat, full stop. And then, funnily enough, there's a corporation out there that's making massive amounts of money from food not getting pollinated, and that's called Monsanto. So, look, we've got a massive situation on our hands here, and this is where this scientist sort of situation comes in. And these scientists, when you look at as I've just discussed, possibly the biggest problem facing mankind, unless we dramatically change the economic system as we know it, which the powers to be obviously don't want to happen, then what is the solution to maintain the current status quo as we know it? Now, a solution... what's the solution to climate change? What's the solution to climate change? Well, it would be weather modification so that you could cool the planet. Now, I have not seen one other major solution to climate change. It's pretty much the only thing that we've got on the cards. Being able to cloud seed, being able to...
adapt. That's one option.
No, definitely. No, well, the main solution, the only real solution is we'll keep the fossil fuels in the ground. We start using
prevention. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a little bit late for that. They reckon it's too late for prevention.
Well. Let's be serious.
We're at a 4-degree to 6-degree rise now. We were at 2 degrees. And then that was at the moment when we were deciding, we've still got some time, but now we're...
But if we were to stop tomorrow...
No, we're still gone over. We've still overshot.
No, absolutely. Yeah. I'm well aware of that. But if we were to stop tomorrow, it's obviously going to be better for us in the long run. Look, the simple solution is I don't want to really go into the possible options apart from obviously we've got solar, wind power, all that. But once again, we're running on time schedules here which aren't conducive to the economic system. Doesn't allow you to go, well, we're going to sort of put all this on hold for a second, okay, and we're going to go, well, we'll get this kicking over again, but once we have clean energy and once we have all the rest of it.
Yeah.
So at the moment, what we're trying to do is we're just trying to maintain the 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, work in, work out, do your 60 hours a week, shut the fuck up, do your job. And there's no leeway to say, well, maybe we shouldn't be pulling coal out of the ground, because the people who are making all the money from that are the ones that rule the world.
Yeah. And I think, like, going back to what we were talking about before, the massive problem with all this stuff is that the science does not seem to be clear about it, and that for whatever reason that is, it doesn't seem to me like it should be that difficult to figure out the actual science behind it and come to a definite conclusion, but they just can't seem to do it. And I understand that the climate is extremely complicated. I get that there are lots of factors going into it and stuff, but I just don't understand why there are anti-climate change people out there and then pro-climate change people. What the fuck? Like, why is it so hard to get right information? And again, it's like when any scientist tells you something that you have no idea about, because most of us in daily life aren't scientists, we don't know anything about it. If someone tells me, like, I don't know that gravity exists apart from my own experience with it, but I wouldn't know, I wouldn't have thought of the apple falling from the tree like Newton did to be able to explain a concept like that. So I'm basically taking it on pure faith when people tell me about that. And it's the same with the amount of particles and fossil fuels in the air at the moment. It's the same with our rate of decline with the climate, the atmosphere. I'm listening to someone who I'm trusting has gone out there, done the research, and they're telling me in a white coat what's going on, and I'm taking it on pure faith.
That's right.
And so that's such a massive problem with science, is that people don't bother to sort of... Well, no, it's not people's fault. It's fucking... You can't know everything, really. I mean, I don't really know what point I'm trying to make.
You get these other options. You get these options. You go, look, if you just watch the TV and that's how you get your information, then you sort of have a golf ball sized view of what the world is. Yeah. Okay, and you're told what you're there to be told, and you do what you're there to be, what's there to be done. Yeah. Then as soon as you might go to university, and depending on what university degree, so a very limited amount of university degrees will tell you interesting stuff. But you did one, and they told you we're in a fucking spot of bother. Yeah. In your university degree, what did you do let everyone know?
Atmospheric and ocean science.
Atmospheric and ocean science, and they said at university. Now you wouldn't get this in every university course, but they said in your university course.
No, I'm sure that every uni would teach that climate change is happening.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. Without a doubt. But if you're doing economics, they're not going to teach you that we should. No. They're not going to teach you that we should fucking stop.
No, I only heard about it at uni because I studied it.
That's what I mean. Climate, yeah. So if you learn economics, to get taught economics, they're not going to tell you we should stop burning fossil fuels because that's against the system. Yeah. All right, so there you go. So if you do university, you have a bit of a bigger expanse of knowledge. Yeah. Now, if you are passionate and curious about learning everything that you can about the world, and you stick your head in the internet day in, day out, then you've got all these other little dots that start appearing that you need to start connecting about all these other scientists that aren't on the TV, that don't go to universities, and scientists that do tests for themselves for interest's sake with this chemtrail, geoengineering nature. Scientists that do dozens of tests on water throughout the world, from Europe to Australia to here to there, and they say that they are finding extreme amounts of aluminium, beryllium, and strontium, which they should not be finding in water sources around the world. There's having massive die-offs of fish populations. Dolphins and fish just in thousands and millions just turning up on ocean shores.
And the oceans acidifying at a rapid rate.
Yep. Oceans acidifying. You've got basically 100 species a day going extinct.
200 it was a day.
200 a day going extinct. Yeah. They're saying that they're now finding fluoride. They're finding artificial fluoride in Europe. In water supplies in Europe.
Oh, because getting that far now.
No, because they're saying that they're spraying it now.
Yeah, okay.
Because
they can't drink it because they're not drinking it.
Because the government has not allowed them. So now they're saying that. So when you start looking at that, and some people go, "Oh, that's conspiracy theory." No, well, I watch the TV sometimes, and I go, "That's a fucking conspiracy theory." Like whatever the TV tells me sometimes is so. Conspiracy is only valid for what you're willing to believe it to be.
Well, people say that because they have only been exposed to one type of information source, and so to them a conspiracy theory is something that is so out of their world of info that they're like, oh, that's so strange, it must be conspiracy. But for us, we're delved into conspiracy theory side of things so often that to us mainstream information seems conspiracy.
That's right. Well, what's the scientific term for it? Cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is when you encounter a belief structure that does not agree with yours, so your brain automatically, it's like a human trait that your brain automatically has to say, I'm not going to listen.
But you know what, there are so many conspiracy theories that I cannot wait to be finally proved right, because we know that the NSA thing that Snowden released, that was a conspiracy theory before it came out in mainstream media. That how they were building all those buildings in Utah or whatever that held all the information that the NSA was taking from people illegally. That was a conspiracy theory. Like, for ages before.
definitely.
We talked about it on earlier podcasts. Then Snowden brought it out, and now it's mainstream. And that was a fucking conspiracy theory. So I'm sure there's been more of those that have happened, and I cannot wait for this chemtrail thing to finally.
Oh no, I think it's definitely happening. But this is what I'm talking about. Like, they're saying, what are they saying? So this HAARP thing's a whole other situation. Basically, if anyone doesn't know what HAARP is, it's an electromagnetic pulse. Uses a massive amount of energy and pushes the ionosphere of the Earth, which is basically the ozone layer of the Earth, and shoots these electromagnetic waves up and pushes it up. So when it bounces back, when the ozone layer bounces back, it pushes airflow and energy and currents of water into different areas. So it's basically, they're saying it's a new type of warfare. So for interest's sake, there was talk that I listened to this lecture today. There was talk that
Thailand wouldn't let them build
Thailand wouldn't let America put a
weather observation centre, which they thought was a weather manipulation centre.
A weather observation centre, a weather manipulation centre in Thailand, because it would have helped them control China and that sort of thing. So Thailand said no. So what happened? A couple of weeks later, Thailand got flooded.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that we don't know if that's
no, absolutely got no idea, But then once again, they brought up in context close to home. They're saying they said what happened in the Australian region? Well, the drought that we had recently. They did say that they said that. Who was it? They said that. Who was doing it? I think Indonesia was cloud seeding. Indonesia was cloud seeding or something.
I don't know.
No. So this is how they say the Queensland floods happened. They say Indonesia 6 months before that was fucking heavily cloud seeding to get some rain, to get rain in parts of their country so that they could grow crops, and then Queensland flooded. And then and they were also saying that the droughts that happened recently. The droughts that happened recently in Australia, all throughout Australia, this happened for about 8 years.
Yeah.
And so now what's happened, and you can look this up, this is common knowledge, that Monsanto has literally brought up like a massive amount of land to pennies on the dollar.
What I reckon is interesting, it brings up the question of what actually...
Because it's all drought-ridden.
...matters here, because you've got these events... could and would very well happen in nature anyway, but the thing is, nature doesn't have any malicious intent and has no purpose for things happening in certain areas.
Perfect cover story.
But yeah, I know nature. I know it's random.
Story.
Obviously, then the problem is not that we have to go through a flood, because that might happen anyway, and you have to learn to deal with that. But that someone wishes that upon you. You know, I find that philosophically interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's all about intention. That's actually all that matters.
Today, if anyone is listening that follows our Facebook page, we're just focusing everything on war and why it's bad and all the rest of it. All of our posts had to do with war. And I mean, this situation, from stuff that we've done today, from the things that we've done today, obviously the public are disliking the fact that countries are going to war now. You know, you're getting massive war movements. When they tried to go in Iraq, 2 million people around the world got to the streets. Like, I mean, I don't know, it's going to get to a point where the public will just say, no, you can't go to war anymore. And I know they've said it before, but
how?
Obviously,
I don't know.
Well, they'll riot. They'll fucking riot. Like, they would rather riot against their government than see people go and kill another million civilians in another country. Like, I mean,
will that work?
Yeah, I think so. I think it would. I think it would have to. Like, I mean, how can you... If you've got... Once again, we're talking riots like 33 million people. Like, you just don't have... It doesn't matter what your police force is like.
Well,
you
in
just
Australia,
don't have
obviously in Australia it worked because it would be so unusual and out of place here that it would work.
Definitely.
But somewhere like America, I don't think...
But remember, there are 300 million people in America. There's 330 million. There's only 80 million people in Egypt. And 80 million people in Egypt, 33 million people protested against the government, and the military had to kick the government out. And I'm not saying that's the best thing. I'm not saying at all. But when you have, let's say there's 100 million people in America, protests. And I'm not saying it could even happen, but let's say it does happen. Let's say there's 100 million people on the street. How the fuck can you stop that? You can't. You have to pull the troops out.
Yeah,
So it gets to the point where information, when it's spread as violently as what it is, for such as in Egypt and Arab Spring and that sort of thing, then people will follow.
You see, I don't know that they would give in to that. I think that they would use the military against the public for that. In that
How
case.
could they?
Because I know that it'd be obviously a massive fight and it would come down to numbers, and that's why we need every person out on the street. But I'm just saying that. But I think that the only way that what you're saying would work is if the government upheld the principle and actually believed it that they were a democracy. And when you've got America, they clearly aren't.
Yeah.
And clearly they have no desire to even pretend to be. So they aren't interested in the idea that, there's people on the street, it must mean that overwhelmingly they would prefer us to do this. No, because because they will openly say, no, you don't know all the story. Yeah. I know better. It's best that we're fighting in Iraq.
Yeah.
And that will always be their argument,
Yeah.
I think. And no matter how many people come out in the streets, they will always come back with that, and they will fight to the death because we know that
once again, America is another situation where there's so much potential for oppression and so much potential for hope. Because but once again, you miss it. We're discounting the fact that if it did get to that and they did bring the army in, then it would just be a civil war.
That's what I mean. But I think that it would go to that.
So many guns.
But I think that Obama administration or government in America would do that before it would give in to the people's will.
No, I don't think so.
I really think they would definitely.
What do you mean? It'd be a failed state. It'd be a failed state. Once a country like that goes into a civil war, there is no coming back from that. They would be failed as a country. The army would revolt against them. If the army had to start killing innocent civilians in a civil war, the army would disband. They couldn't do it.
I think though that the point that we're talking about where this would occur is going to be the catastrophe of the globe anyway.
Yeah.
So I think that the whole globe is going to be in disarray, and that shit will occur. Yeah. Coupled with the environment fucking up and everything, I think it's all going to happen at once.
Yeah.
And I think it's all just going to come.
No, it is.
I think it's going to be the army exists to protect the rich, and it's going to come. It's going to come down to that.
Well, but that's why the biggest conspiracy of all. The biggest conspiracy of all is politics, because what politics does is conspire to maintain the gap between rich and poor. In a capitalist democracy, conspire to maintain, actively coercing the society to maintain the rich keeps people of money and the poor stay at the bottom so they can work for the rich. So that's how capitalism works.
Well, no, that's how politics in an environment of a free market works.
Well, that's how capitalism
works. Capitalism is what? What's the definition of capitalism?
Well,
I don't know.
To maintain capital, to hoard
capitalism,
capital.
I think, is the idea of the principle that you not to hoard. Isn't it just to go through life with the incentive of building wealth?
Yeah, definitely to maintain and keep capital, which means you're successful.
Okay, so I think but I don't think that's not what we don't have a pure capitalist environment here. No. So basically, we've got
because capitalism is capitalism is no intervention. No. Government is not allowed to intervene in business. So we have socialist capitalism throughout the world. Socialism.
So the worst kind, because a government brings out the worst in capitalism when it's involved. So we've basically got a market environment where people's goals and aspirations are to build wealth, compete against each other for profit, which can be a healthy thing if you've got a place where people all have equal rights and no one has power over another. But so let's say we've got this environment here where that's the basic rules. Everyone allows to go, everyone fights themselves and profit and all that. Then you've got governments around and politicians and that whole structure which exists purely to enforce certain rules which favour some over others. Yeah. So all that does is just create unequal power of some people over others, which is what creates the gap in inequality. So it's just it's just force.
But like I said, without sort of government regulation on certain things, then wouldn't business just fucking like go out of control, as in like
well, but
you know,
businesses rely on support from the public,
for interest sake in but only to an informed public.
Yeah, I understand that's a massive problem.
But interest sake in Queensland, the Liberal government, Campbell Newman, he wanted to fucking build a massive fucking coal port in the Great Barrier Reef, and it was going to lose its fucking World Heritage listing.
Yeah, I understand all that.
So without that would have happened.
No, you've got to understand though that when we don't have a government, and people are used to that, not having a government, they grow up in a place where there's no government, and they know that no one else is going to make decisions on behalf of them. No one's going to fucking do it. There's no government who you think is overseeing this, and don't worry, the government, they know what's going on with the climate, they'll fix it. Or don't worry, they know what's going on with the environment, they'll fix it. We have such faith in them to do all that shit. If we know they're not doing it, if we know there's nobody up there doing stuff like that for us, it is our responsibility as a citizen in this society to be informed consumers and be outspoken about things like that, and so that our actual consumer choice, our purchase power, has a much greater impact because we are informed.
But that was the government making that decision. The government made that decision. The government wanted to do
then
it.
what the fuck is they're not even doing the right thing anyway. But they're doing it to making shit decisions. So they're not, even when they are supposed to be overseeing what wishes as public, they're not even fucking doing it right.
But they got the same report as what the big business got. Okay, so they got the report that if you go and fucking put this here, it's going to mean that there's going to be another 200 ships a week have to come in. It's going to and they were going, that's acceptable. Business was saying everyone was saying that was acceptable. Fine. And then the federal government came in and said, that's unacceptable. Right. We're not doing this because this is not in the favour of Australia as a whole. Okay, so I just can't correlate the facts that if there was no government, or if there is a government, or whatever the fucking government, if there's money to be made and it's at the expense of the environment, history fucking shows that it's going to be made.
But that's because there's people to enforce that law. So if you've got people, a business who wants to do that, and the people don't want it to happen because it's environmentally unfriendly, whatever, the government allow it to happen because of profit that's there to be made due to that business coming in, they are going to pass a law which protects that company and allows them to damage the environment, which means that the public cannot go and, enforce their will upon it. So the government create this power and they enforce it with force. They allow these people, that's like how the government in the US protect Monsanto from any possible future harm that may come from their products, their GM foods, which is absolutely outrageous. They are legally protected. So that's what government do. They make decisions on behalf of us to legally protect us, and they remove our power as consumers and citizens, to make our desires and wishes heard.
So were you saying if there was no legislation, then no one would do anything wrong like that?
I'm just saying that I think the purest form of democracy, which I hate that word, but the purest form you can get is when every single person has a say in every single minute of the day about what they want. And the best way to filter those decisions through is through a market environment where people buy things.
But they got that now.
That is an amazing way of doing it.
They've got that now, but they got less choice because the government says, well, you can do this and you can't do this.
But exactly right. So we've got the government which overpowers our consumer choice. It doesn't matter what, even if we were to... Okay, I understand that consumer knowledge and info is a massive problem here. But let's assume that people are informed, and we decide, I don't want that to happen because I don't want Coles to go and buy up all the farms and stop paying their farmers heaps, minimal, because I understand the damage of that, and so I'm going to boycott it through my consumer choice. But then you've got the government who overrules that and goes, no. We know better. Yeah. We have a better idea of what's going on, and we are going to pass a law which allows them to do certain things because we have the power to do so, and it completely takes away our power.
Do you understand that, the government is acting on the behalf because they know?
That's the point. Because they're not, though.
No.
That's the point we need to understand, is that the government do not act on behalf of the population, and they can never, ever act on behalf of the population in a pure way. There's always going to be a lot of people who aren't getting their wishes heard.
We're still at an infantile stage of the internet, okay? We're still, and even to the point of how the internet is today and how many people use it to how it was, because this is the only way that you can have an informed public when they have the option to be able to look at this stuff themselves and they're not indoctrinated through a TV in their fucking living room, okay? So the internet's the only way that this can happen. So we're still at an infantile stage of it. And people, and even though it is 10 times fucking crazier and more amazing and more fucking informative than it was 5 years ago, and it will continue like that, I still do not see a point in the near future where, even in our lifetime, where everyone can be or is trained to be that well informed with
and
these
do you
decisions
know why?
for them to make the best decision.
Exactly, because we have grown up thinking that someone else is doing it for us.
Oh, shit.
Sean just spilled his beer and everything, which is quite normal for him. Good work. So that's because we have grown up in an environment where we have a government, someone who is supposed to be making all those decisions on behalf of us, and we let them. We've completely shut down. We've given up all our rights. We've given up all our thinking. We don't think about things anymore because we just assume that someone else is doing it for us, and so we just sit here and watch TV and because someone else is looking after it. But that's why it's hard for us to imagine in an environment, an anarchic environment, where consumer demand and purchase power actually drives the greater good that actually occurs.
Yeah, no, look, I'm all about it. I'm just speaking for the people who don't really understand what you're talking about at the moment. I understand. Because, once again, you can relate it back to the drug situation. There's no right for a government to be able to tell you what you can and can't put in your body. You know what I mean? As long as you don't harm anyone else. It's the same sort of thing.
Okay, so I'm not saying that there should be no. Okay, let's make it clear, everybody. Anarchy is not without rules. It is without rulers. So basically, imagine if we could come up with legislation that was created through the internet, where everybody, and this is why the example that to bring up, why people will become informed, because they will realize that an informed citizen that's the way to be in an anarchic environment. You fucking have to inform yourself, because otherwise you're going to miss out. You're going to miss out on how the world runs around you, because the power is with you this time. Imagine if there's a company that are let's say the process is we have like this message board where if you want to do something in Victoria, let's say our state we live in, you have to put up on the message board your plan, and then people comment. There's a certain amount of months or whatever people have to give their feedback and say, yeah, we want this to happen or whatever. And people who are directly influenced by it might have they might get specific invitations to come and say what they think about it, whatever. And then on the internet, everyone can go and they get to say yes or no. Can you do this? And imagine that. And then the same thing with the Great Barrier Reef. Some company proposes that, and then they ask the public, because there's no one else to ask because there's no government. So let's see if people really want this, and if they don't want it, they're not going to buy our product anyway. So it's actually in our best interest to ask the public what they want, because by that type of environment, people will boycott companies who do the wrong thing, and they will have no economic power at all. And then we all go online, we vote. Imagine that. That would just be amazing. We would actually have power. We would actually get to say.
Yep. Yeah, I'm all for it, yeah.
Yeah, good. To me, anarchy is inevitable, because it's... to me, anarchy is evolution of consciousness, just like everything that we're talking about, what we've ever spoken about in this whole change that's happening in the world. It needs to be a change that's happening in the mind and the mentality and in consciousness, and as well in our environment. And it's the evolution from within that's going to be reflected on the out. And once the revolution happens within, where we realise who we are and that we do not need to be ruled, and we break out of our ego, we break out of this fucked up conditioning that we've had about needing to have someone believing in greed as a human nature, believing in sheep and leaders as human nature. All that is complete crap. That is just the society we've been brought up in. There's nothing true about that. And once we realise that people can live however the fuck they like, and there is no right of anybody else to tell about that, then anarchy is absolutely inevitable.
Yeah. That
will happen at some point.
And a resource-based economy.
Yes, at some point we will have to take into account that the obvious fact that we live on a finite planet. I mean, that is pretty clear.
The way I see it, a resource-based economy is the only way of the future, because every day that goes by, the more and more resources which we use, it'll eventually get to a point where we see a collapse in society, which will happen eventually if we can maintain this current capitalist economic system. Okay.
Yep, it's just a matter of when.
It's just a matter of when it collapses. So when it collapses, we will have to do an inventory of everything that we've got left.
Yep.
The amount of people we've got.
How many people we can survive.
Not how many people can survive. We'll always be able to feed the amount of people that we have on.
Well, when we fuck up the planet so much, we've got fuck all left.
That's
and we're like, shit.
That's quite a fuckery.
What are we going to do?
That's a lot of fucking. Like, we've got to do. You know what I mean? Like what I mean. We might not have arable farmland. We might not have much arable farmland left. Okay, well that's all right. Well, we'll just make fucking 50-story high rises that are hydroponic setups and completely organic.
Okay, but listen to what I'm assuming that we're going to fucking scorch the sky as they did in Matrix. You know, that's what I'm sort of leading down the path because of what they're doing with geoengineering now.
How about fucking that Matrix?
That will happen.
How about in the Matrix?
We actually live in the Matrix.
How about I think we do. I think they knew something we don't. How about in the fucking Matrix? How he's got on his passport, on Neo's passport, 9/11. He's got his date. His birth date is 9/11.
That is so fucking creepy.
Everyone, check it out. You'll be able to find it on the internet. On Neo's passport, when they just in the first Matrix, his actual birth date is like 2001 9/11. Like it is fucking and that was before 9/11.
Not 2001. I think it's just 9/11.
It was 9/11. Sorry, it was 9/11, and it was and that movie came out before 9/11.
Before 9/11, yep.
Yeah.
That's so scary.
That's crazy. Yeah. You'll be able to find it somewhere on the internet.
That movie is so freaky.
Yeah. I think it's amazing. I think and it's so true. It's all just true.
So ridiculous.
Jess was trying to say it has to do with Christianity and between good and bad. I don't think it does. like the machines are the devil and like the fucking.
Well, I'm sure that you could probably look at it from any point of view. But like,
it's pretty
the
obvious.
Realizations I had that time about the Matrix a couple of years ago, I was just like, well, the Matrix is right.
Yeah, it's completely right.
Correct.
Yeah.
Anyway, so if anyone's still listening, good job. But I encourage you to not just see it as a ridiculous idea, the idea of no government. I understand that it is a really hard thing to wrap your head around and that it seems outrageously impossible to achieve. And what's the point of thinking about that? Of course you need government because who's going to defend the country against our enemies and who's going to build the roads and all that crap? Go and look into it and actually ask yourself those questions because they're fucking awesome questions. Who's going to build the road? Who's going to defend us? How are we going to have armies? How? Those are really great questions. Go and find out the answer because there are answers out there. There are answers. And, I think the main thing that I want to stress with anarchy is it's not so much trying to figure out a system of living together, which is basically what we've tried to do in the past, and we've come up with capitalism and socialism and communism and whatever, come up with all these different quote-unquote livestock management systems, which basically are just different ways of controlling each other so that we can fucking try and live in some sort of, civil environment. What anarchy is about isn't about figuring out a way to live together. It's about understanding the moral and philosophical principles behind the fact that nobody has the right to tell someone else what to do. And if we start with that fundamental principle and work from there, we will figure out the most pure form of living together because we will not have, broken that one fundamental rule of morality, which is don't tell other people what to do. Yeah. So as long as we don't do that, I think that's where to start. Start from there and we'll figure it out. We'll start from there and we will figure it out. It'll be amazing what happens after that. Once we decide no one tells us what to do, we'll come together and we'll go, oh my God, we can all voluntarily participate in all these amazing organisations that build the roads.
The only way that sort of system can work is with a equal operating,
an information dispenser?
No. An equal dispersion of resources so that no one is fighting to survive. Because as soon as fighting to survive comes into play, then I will kill and I will rape you and I'll do whatever I can to be able to get what I need so me and my family survives. So once we've figured that out, then that's going to be accessible.
No, I think...
And then also we need a education system which is conducive to the humanity, or not humanity, even the whole society as a whole, or humanity as a whole.
Yeah, but I think it's not so much that we need to organise a system for people to use to be. An education system. It's more that we need to have the ability to really disseminate information as much as we possibly can, so that we allow people to be as informed as possible, because that's going to be paramount in terms of, like I said, we were talking about before, having good purchase power throughout society. And what was the first one you brought up? Oh, yeah. So, I mean, also, another thing is, the only other side note from that was not what you said about protecting ourselves from the the survival instinct and, the fights that might occur over resources. It's more understanding we really have to take into account, obviously, the resources on the earth for the benefit of of everybody. Yeah, yes, definitely. We need to sort that out. But once that's taken care of, where the resources go amongst each other will be taken care of equally in the marketplace, when everybody's informed, when nobody's conditioned to all the propaganda, everything that we put up with today, basically will be gone, and will be free people who understand the individual's power, unique talent, skills. You'll have determination to go out there and make something of yourself. And I'm not talking about the incentive of profit. I'm talking about the incentive to be your best and contribute your wonderful, unique talent to the world, and someone out there will want to buy it from you. And, you don't have to... I mean, I understand what you said with the problem of things like, you can just go and rape someone and get what you need because it might come down to that. Well, I mean, it will be all a matter of what your community think around you that will dictate whether or not that's allowed. If people think that raping is okay, then no one is going to condemn you for it. But if people think that raping is bad, then the community around you will ostracize you, and you will not be able to survive in a community without the support of this.
Here's the thing with it. I think you're missing a big point of this whole anarchist argument, and the really big point of it is that you need to have a very, very solid foundation, at least for the first 2 or 3 generations, okay, of the new human anarchist human being. All right, that solid foundation comes from the parents having time to be at home with their children, not having to worry about how much the mortgage is, not having to worry about where their next meal's coming from, like pretty much in 80% of the world, not having to worry about any of this shit. So like. And then they need to be at a school or an educational system where everyone else is in the same boat, so that they're mixing with people who are similar, and they're also mixing with other. The teachers have time to look after the students. There's not 50 people in a class. There's not all the shit for cost saving measures. No,
I know. I'm not talking about the transition period. I understand that the transition.
I don't believe anarchism will work in our current economic system.
Of course it won't. Of course it won't, because the people aren't ready for it. That's why I'm saying the change. We are simply...
Well, first things first.
The beliefs that we have and the values that we've got and the way people are is no way near compatible with an anarchic environment, which is why we must change fundamentally from the birth upwards. We have to change from the first generation up if we're ever going to get this type of environment. And I'm not talking... Everything I was saying is not talking about how we can just magically just go into that period now. There will be transition phases, transition generations, and it's all going to come down to parenting and how every single human being is brought up to be conditioned out of these conditionings. We need to be brought up in a completely different environment.
You can't. Everyone in the world fucking believes in that there's a guy in the sky.
I know. We're a long way to go. We've got a long way to go. It might be hundreds of years before we get to an anarchic environment. I'm not saying it's going to happen in our generation. I'm just saying that the evolution of the human psyche, it's inevitable. It will happen eventually. It's just going to take a fucking while to get through this, stage we're at now. We're definitely massively far away, especially when you look at how religion controls people. But I think that parenting is the biggest way out. That's our biggest key to getting shit sorted.
Of course it is. But if you ever talk about anarchism again, you really should start with that as a fundamental. Because, you talked about that for about 15 minutes and you didn't even really massively touch on it needs to come from, the foundations of raising a child.
Sorry. Well,
from even the point that the baby is conceived.
No, but I don't...
Even the 9 months in the uterus.
Yeah, that's true. I could have mentioned that, but I never guaranteed to you that I was talking about not the way things should be. I'm talking about the way things should be. I'm not talking about necessarily how to get there. The path to anarchy is going to be rough, and I don't have the answers for everything. I'm talking about how it could be and where we should be headed.
Yeah, but
not
like
how to get there.
people sort of when you talk about that sort of stuff, and when they hear that stuff, people sort of switch off and go automatically defensive because they are just so far from the concept of understanding how that might even be possible in an alternate reality. Like it's not even like, oh, that would be nice. Sort of like that's fucked up. That's an absolute impossibility.
I know, which is why I said that.
Really,
I said
like,
that.
I'm just saying if you're saying this to sort of try and allow people to understand about a different reality.
I'm trying to get people to understand the goal, and then we can try and figure out how to get there. If they don't understand the goal and the logic behind actually how the goal makes sense and how that is where we're going to be headed, then we're never going to be able to get there. You have to get where we're going first.
Yeah.
Understand where we're going first. And I said that at the start. I was like, I know it's a difficult concept to wrap your head around, but just try and amuse me and think about it for a bit. But yes, okay, from now on I will mention that the road to anarchy is difficult, but the goal's worth
road
thinking
to anarchy
about.
starts with having children. That's it.
Or not having children if you're a fuckwit.
Yeah.
Please don't have children.
Yeah, definitely. Well,
anyway, that was a good conversation.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening. And that was episode number 33. I wonder if anything magical will happen tonight.
Nothing. Maybe one person heard it, the person who's going to be not in control of the anarchist society. Person who... Yeah. Maybe the modern day Virgin Mary is going to spawn Jesus and is going to create an anarchist society.
Yeah, and conceive in Bethlehem
and then
Christmas.
when there's a sacrifice. That's what I love, that meme. I saw that meme the other day. So like, it's like God's up there looking down on the earth. It's like, they're not doing that well. Maybe I need to go down and kill myself.